In 1631, a tremendous earthquake struck the Italian peninsula, so violent that it was felt as far away as Sicily. But if you were in Naples at the time, you wouldn't have had much time to worry about the rumbling earth beneath your feet, because just after the quake struck, an even greater disaster followed. A nearby volcano erupted, spewing ash and pumice across the entire Bay of Naples, covering the city in over a foot of volcanic debris. It was one of the deadliest disasters in human history, killing more than 5,000 people. But the strange thing is, this isn't the only time this has happened. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, which buried the Roman city of Pompeii in ash and killed thousands, is famous the world over. But it's often forgotten that the volcano responsible for that eruption is actually just the tip of the iceberg, or rather, the tip of the volcano. Because beneath the surface of the earth, just off the coast of Naples, lies something far more dangerous, a supervolcano so large that it dwarfs Vesuvius and could easily destroy not just the surrounding areas, but the entire planet. It's me, and you're watching this channel. And today, we're exploring the Phlegraean Fields. The Phlegraean Fields are located south of Naples, near the town of Pozzuoli. Here, the Mediterranean nearly laps at the base of a massive caldera, so large that it's visible from space. This is the crater left behind after the supervolcano erupted sometime around 13,000 years ago. During that eruption, an estimated 51 cubic kilometers of material was shot into the air, enough to cover all of England in over a meter of ash. But while the effects of that first eruption have long since worn off, the area has continued to rumble ever since. And it's not just the land that's been affected, either. The sea itself seems determined to stay involved in the action, with a number of small islands rising up from the water, only to disappear again just as quickly. The most prominent of these islands is called Aphrodisias, named after the Greek goddess of love and beauty, and its origins can be traced back to the same super-eruption that created the caldera all those years ago. Back then, the land around the caldera collapsed, forming a giant lake. But as the years passed, hot springs and geysers began to bubble and spit their way to the surface, raising the lake bed little by little. By the Middle Ages, the island of Aphrodisias had formed and was home to a small community of fishermen. But by the 18th century, it had been completely submerged once more. Today, it once again sits above the waves, forming a small peninsula connected to the mainland by a narrow strip of land. Not to be outdone, another island named Italia also emerged from the depths in the Middle Ages, only to sink back down again in the 15th century. And according to some reports, it might be doing it yet again. Since the beginning of the 20th century, the island has risen by several meters, and it's expected to emerge once more later this century. But while the restless earth and shifting sea may make for a dramatic backdrop, it's the potential for disaster that makes the Phlegraean Fields truly terrifying. While the super-eruption 13,000 years ago left behind a crater that stretched from north to south, the caldera itself runs in an east-west direction. Measuring 5 by 30 kilometers, it's big enough to fit London, Paris, and Berlin all inside, with plenty of room to spare. But that's only the size of the crater that we can see. Scientists estimate that the true caldera extends almost 30 times deeper beneath the surface of the Earth. And if that sounds too unbelievable to be true, just consider that beneath the surface of Yellowstone National Park, the magma chamber is roughly 50 kilometers below ground. That's why the Phlegraean Fields are considered a magma chamber rather than a magma chamber. It's basically a gigantic pot of superheated molten rock just waiting to boil over. But don't worry, right? After all, it is just a volcano, and they're pretty common in Italy. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case. You see, the danger with a volcano like Mount Vesuvius is that it's highly predictable. Scientists can closely monitor seismic activity and gas emissions in order to tell when it might blow. And thanks to early warning systems, the local population can be quickly evacuated before the eruption takes place. But with the Phlegraean Fields, things are very different. The problem is that there are no clear signs of an impending eruption. In fact, we haven't even seen any major earthquakes or ground tremors in the area for hundreds of years. For the people living in the surrounding area, life feels perfectly normal. The danger is lurking beneath their feet undetected until it's too late. This is because the pressure from the magma chamber isn't building inside the volcano itself. Instead, it's building up in the pores of the surrounding rocks, slowly pushing the earth upwards, like a balloon being blown up under a layer of elastic. Eventually, the elastic will snap and the earth will collapse. When that happens, the expanding magma chamber will rise rapidly towards the surface, creating an eruption so powerful that it will rip apart the existing caldera, creating a new and even larger one. At this point, you might be wondering why we don't just move away from the danger zone. After all, if the area is so unsafe, why don't the millions of people living in and around Naples just pack up and go live somewhere else? Well, unfortunately, that's not as easy as it sounds. You see, the land surrounding the Phlegraean Fields isn't just dangerous because of the volcano. It's also extremely fertile. Thanks to centuries of volcanic ash and silt being washed over the area, the soil here is rich with nutrients, making it ideal for farming. In fact, the entire region is considered one of the most agriculturally productive areas of Europe. In other words, the land is both cursed and blessed by the volcano, which is why settlements have existed here since the time of the Greeks. As for moving further inland, well, there's the problem of the sea. Just to the east of the Phlegraean Fields lie the three arms of the Bay of Naples, forming a natural harbor that's protected from the wind. This has made the bay one of the best natural harbors in the Mediterranean and a major shipping hub for centuries. In fact, the port of Naples is still one of the largest and busiest in all of Europe. So, yeah, basically the people living around the Phlegraean Fields are stuck between a rock and a hard place. If they try to leave, they'll lose access to some of the best farmland and natural harbors in the entire continent. Not to mention that trying to evacuate over 2 million people would be a logistical nightmare. There simply isn't anywhere else for them to go. As if that weren't bad enough, the cities surrounding the Phlegraean Fields are built over top of layers of ancient ruins. Not only are there remnants of Roman roads, aqueducts, and villas scattered throughout the area, but there are also artifacts from the Bronze Age and even the Paleolithic era. These sites aren't just important to historians, they're an important part of Italy's cultural heritage. And that means that they're protected. Archaeologists have spent decades painstakingly excavating these sites, only to have their work buried once more. So, as you can probably imagine, the idea of packing up and starting over somewhere else is pretty unappealing. Not to mention that such a massive evacuation would likely never happen in time. See, the thing about a supervolcanic eruption is that while the initial explosion might be relatively small, the real danger comes afterwards. Unlike regular volcanoes, which burn themselves out within a few days, the initial eruption of a supervolcano is merely the opening act. After the magma chamber is breached, lava, ash, and pumice will continue to pour out for weeks, months, or even years. And the amount of ash released during the initial explosion will blot out the sun, plunging the entire world into darkness for days, weeks, or even months. It might sound like something straight out of a Hollywood movie, but it's actually what happened in 1815 when Mount Tambora erupted in Indonesia. It was the most violent eruption in recorded history and unleashed 50 cubic kilometers of material, triggering the year without a summer, in 1816. But while Tambora was deadly, it was nothing compared to the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883, which released 200 cubic kilometers of material and triggered tsunamis that killed over 36,000 people. Once again, it might sound like fiction, but it's a horrifying reality that the Phlegraean Fields could do the same at any moment. And when you consider that the last super-eruption took place 13,000 years ago, it's clear that it could happen at any moment. Of course, it's impossible to say exactly when the next eruption will take place. Some scientists believe that it's due anytime now, while others say that we have several thousand years left. The truth is that we simply don't know. And that's the scariest part of all, because unlike Mount Vesuvius, there's no way for us to know when it's going to blow.